Good evening. Welcome to the Selectmen's, I'm trying to get comfortable in my chair. Selectmen's meeting for tonight. We're going to forego the minutes for now. We're going to take the first thing we have on our agenda under general business, which is Eric Williams from Canna Provisions, discussion of the community impact fee payments. And I'd just like to point out that Bob Jones is sitting in the audience because Bob has a conflict.
Right.
We don't want any undue problems, so.
Excellent. Well, thank you to the select board, and I hope you do get comfortable in that chair. I think it's the first time I've seen you in the chairperson's chair, so congratulations to that.
Thanks.
My name is Eric Williams. I am Chief Operating Officer and an owner of Canna Provisions, dispensary located at 220 Housatonic Street. And I am here today, one day after our second anniversary of being open, which also led to conversations, as you know, before this meeting, talking about the community impact fee as negotiated, as part of a negotiation for the host community agreement, which the town of Lee signed, as did we. We've come to a very interesting place, and I know I've sent a letter, I'm assuming it's gotten to everyone on the board as well, outlining sort of outlining our concerns right now, our understanding of the host community agreement, particularly the structure of the community impact fee, which is, a creature of general statutes, Chapter 94G, Section 3D. So that's where that legal structure for a community impact fee happens. As you know, there's no other places, any other businesses that you could charge a community impact fee. Very few that you could charge an additional excise tax to, and that part is outlined and that's governed in the host community agreement. I'm not before you to ask for any specific action. Moreover, just really wanted to have an open conversation with the board. I think it's good to have this in public as well, and discuss the host community agreement. I do not expect at any time to ask for there to be any changes in the host community agreement whatsoever. What we really want to talk about here is the fact that the community impact fee is specifically designated with a cap of 3% to cover any costs that the town either actually incurred or anticipated incurring. When I was before this board 3 years ago, I think it's fair to say that while I was really not expecting that there would be a massive community impact, this board did not know. No one in this town, including any administrators, town officials, no one had actually been through a cannabis business. At the time, really the only experience we had was the sort of nightmares that had happened in a few other municipalities when the first 2 or 3 stores opened. But we agreed to that community impact fee of 3% with a 3% cap. We still believe that it is something that should continue to happen. But the fact of the matter is that community impact fee has real clear margins within that it must exist within. And that is that it has to be a direct cost, reasonable direct cost as a result of the town, as a result of the cannabis operation within the town. We don't have those costs. So that's where this conversation started. We've already paid for the first year. We have what would be a payment due, but it does not appear to us that there actually is a community impact that justifies a payment being made at this time. That's what I really wanted to come here to discuss, is coming to an agreement on that. I did want to take a moment real quickly as we're talking about the host community agreement and the actions of this board. About 3 years ago, now I wish I had the exact date that I was stood before you on that. But at that time, we had projections. We were talking about approximately 300 customers, which is 600 trips in and out of our store. We had estimated at that time that each customer would spend approximately $125 per transaction. and that would estimate about $13,612,000 in revenue, with the 3% community impact fee, as well as the 3% excise tax, which the town of Lee opted into. It was projected at that time that the payments from Canada Provisions to the town of Lee would equal $816,750. I'm really happy to report that we have blown through our projections, and despite blowing through those, we still have not had additional costs to the town. I would in fact posit that we have been overall a very positive impact on the town. However, moving forward, want to make sure that the citizens of Lee and the business community that we're a part of understand we were projecting about $816,000. Under our current projections moving forward, we expect that even with the 3% community impact fee not being assessed, that the town should collect approximately $1,080,000 from Canada Provisions. I don't have the exact, the July to July, but calendar year 2020, that's essentially what we are projecting. And that represents approximately a 20% increase over what the town was expecting as a best case scenario under our projections when we stood here 3 years ago.
So, so I understand, so the $1,080,000, that would be entirely excise?
That's entirely excise tax. So it's not lost on us, Madam Chair. So what we're looking at here is an excise rate that is generated much more than projected, and a impact fee that hasn't seen the impacts that were feared. I think regardless of where our numbers are, Mr. Williams and I can certainly agree on that. So we've had a conversation, and I think the best path forward is for us to undertake the exercise, foregoing the immediate, the timeliness of the payment that's due, in an effort to reconcile what was projected with what has actually occurred. Okay. And allowing a time of forbearance to have that discussion and come up with something that is based more in modern day reality than prior year fear. Is that a way to?
Well, uncertainty.
Uncertainty is probably a better way to describe it. I'd certainly call it
uncertainty. And if I may as well, this is, the town of Lee, I think was very forward-looking by welcoming us in. We were the second non-medical conversion store to open in the Commonwealth. Again, second only. I understand exactly where we were at that point. Clearly, even our projections were not on. We did much better than we projected. So there was certainly a lot of uncertainty there. This is across the Commonwealth. This is happening right now. This is an opportunity, I believe, for the town of Lee to also be a leader. So far, Northampton has already stated that they're not collecting those community impact fees. They cannot justify it. Similarly, while they did agree to reduce from 3% to 1% the cap on the community impact fee, they still held that to basically say, if there is an impact, we will collect that. I don't think that matters. Look, if something happened and we were costing that much, we'd be more than happy to pay it. That's the commitment we made to the town of Lee. We have an opportunity here for the town of Lee to continue to be a progressive business leader and welcoming and supportive of the realities of this new business environment that we have both in cannabis and also in the post-pandemic era. But I do want to make it clear that this is coming across the Commonwealth. This legal justification that we're talking about here, it's the same 94G that is applied to every single host community agreement across the Commonwealth. I don't need to remind this board of the whole subpoenas that had happened to every single community that had negotiated a host community agreement because of the actions of one official in Fall River. This is not unclear. It is coming. I want to, credit the town of Lee and its administrators for understanding this and not doing what some municipalities would have done, which is gone ahead and spent that money already, and are now going to find themselves in some difficult positions. But I'm just want to make sure that you're clear that this is happening across the Commonwealth. Some folks are not quite sure that the bell tolls for thee, but it's tolling.
So the only thing I would add, I agree with almost everything Mr. Williams said. The only thing that I would say from my perspective, how progressive the town wants to be is really a decision for you to make. What the administration has always strove for is intellectual honesty, and to be intellectually honest is really important to us. And I think the conversation that I think ought to come out of this meeting will certainly be driving towards that. We certainly want to do what's within the law. We want to do what's right, but we want to do it in a way that is both credible and honest. And I think there's a disconnect between original projections and actual boots on the ground reality that needs to be reconciled, and the administration wants to do that. And we want an opportunity to do that.
Okay. Sean, do you
Yeah, thanks, Eric, for coming before us. Congratulations on your second full year.
Thank you very much.
No, I appreciate your involvement in the community, and I like what you guys bring to town. I think it's great. That's really where I think that I'm standing here is I'd just like to keep the conversation going. We've spoken a couple times. I think it's important to just kind of keep discussing where do we go forward here, and how do we get there, just from an intellectual, honest place, and where can we where can we continue to work together to where maybe that I think it's where do we figure out what that impact fee hits? What can we do? Is there things like programs with the school that you guys might be able to help us just educate kids on substances and things like that? Could we work together on those issues and sort of change the discussion there and keep giving back to the community and those sorts of things? That's where I think that you guys can really shed light on. Marijuana is not a terrible substance if used responsibly, similar to alcohol or other substances. I think that that's an important conversation that I'd like to continue to have. But yeah, I appreciate everything that you guys bring to the community for sure.
Well, it's clearly our goal to continue to have a conversation.
Yeah.
We understand the gravity of the situation as a whole.
Yeah. And that's what I think we want to do too, is just, digest this, figure out, where Lee stands on everything and how do we go forward together, taking the best step forward. So that's kind of my perspective at this point.
Well, I really appreciate that. And again, this is why I thought it was really important to have this conversation in public. I wanted to stand before not just you, but also the citizens here and let folks know that we made a commitment. We're sticking to that commitment. And by the way, we've gone well above and beyond that. And we continue to be committed to this community. We donate generously throughout this community. Would love to and fully expect to continue doing that moving forward. Look, we live here. This is our home. So we're invested as much, if not more than most.
Great. Oh, yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, and I guess I would just say I echo what Sean said, and we understand the position you're in, and you understand the position we're in.
Absolutely.
And I would ask if anyone from the audience has anything they'd like to comment on or contribute before we go.
I would have just one really quick question. You had said something about there's parameters about community impact and what it can be spent on. Is there anything like written down of examples or like examples of other communities that
If I-
have utilized monies for impact?
If I can jump in, if you.
Sure.
What's eligible for, to be spent isn't really something that the statute would dispute, I don't think. What the underlying premise of what generates the fee in the first place is something that we're finding in actuality to be very different from what was projected. I think that's the crux of the problem. It's not on the expenditure side so much as it is why are we doing this?
Why are we collecting it?
What's the rationale for the charge in the first instance? And that's the intellectual exercise that I think we have to get through.
Well, I think you're running a pretty classy business down there. I go by it at least 4 times a day, and it's running, from my impressions from the outside, it's running like clockwork down there.
Thank you very much. Sometimes it gets noisy in the back, but yes, we try to run it like clockwork for sure. Great staff up front.
And it looks like you're back open for business.
We are back open. Post-COVID, we now are welcoming persons inside. Our business model's changed like 7 or 8 times, as the pandemic started, ramped back up and then ramped back down. It's going to change again, we believe, on September 21st when the governor's orders change completely. Our business has increased, but we're serving folks outside. So we're going to readjust. It is really great. It feels like the summer in the Berkshires again, having persons come in because, they're all telling us about all the places that they're visiting, and we're able to tell them again, this restaurant's open today, or this is the place to get a burger or a beer, or yes, the Appalachian Trail's that way. So it just feels like the Berkshires again. I'm so grateful to have people back inside.
So I guess at this time, if there's no further questions, I would ask you that you allow us to take this under advisement for 2 weeks until our next meeting. And I'm sure you and Chris will be in touch, and we'll see what we can do, and then we'll bring it back to public.
So without objection from the board, I'll formally respond to Mr. Williams, acknowledging the need for further dialogue and discussion, and that we would forbear any timeliness of payments due per the agreement.
Okay.
Until we've reached a place where we
Right.
feel like what's being asked of a local business is in fact realistic and reasonable,
Okay.
whatever that is determined to be.
Do you want to put that in the form of a motion?
I don't know that we need that, but
You don't think we need that?
otherwise, I should ask Mr. Williams.
Yeah.
What do you feel like you need to move forward?
We're all in agreement here. We've spoken on the record here that essentially we're forbearing the payment till we can figure out if there is a payment due. I don't, frankly, there's a lot that's unanticipated here. It's not anticipated. Is it the burden of the town to present me with a bill? Or do I, so there's a lot there, and as long as we're all on the same page that I'm not having a late payment, then I'm good with that.
Yeah, I don't think
I
that
don't
would
think
be intellectually honest to do that, so.
Okay.
I appreciate that, and I'm going to use that intellectual honesty a lot. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Okay, so we've done, all right, so we have one set of minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob, welcome back. So we have one set of minutes. No, we have 2. What? Oh, you know what? I've got the old agenda in front of me. I brought from home. Okay. So we've got one set of minutes from May 25th, 2021.
Make a motion to approve minutes from May 25th, 2021 as written.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we don't have any public, we're down to Lee Historical Commission. Hi, Bill.
Hi, thank you for putting us on the agenda. I am Bill Matthews, residing at 54 High Street, and I've come to comment on the letter that you recently received. I hope you all did get it. That raises a question about the adequacy of firefighting water supply in the lower Main Street Historic District. The letter is jointly from the Lee Historical Commission and the Lee Historical Society. As a member of both entities, I'd like to briefly summarize the letter for those who don't have a copy. The water main replacement just concluded on Center Street is phase 1 of a two-part project. Phase 2 would continue the line down to Lower Main Street. Phase 1, paid for by a grant from the Commonwealth to ensure sufficient water for the Eagle Mill development. And Phase 2, paid for by the town to replace an aging line that is too small and somewhat compromised. The letter we wrote takes note of a paragraph in the Open Space and Recreation Plan, the so-called OSRP, of January 2016, that says the fire flow at Center Street is presently 2,700 gallons per minute, and on Lower Main Street is only 1,000 gallons per minute. These numbers are inadequate to fight any expected fire. With new water mains, the numbers would be more like 4,500 at Center Street and 3,500 on Lower Main. Both those numbers are adequate to fight the most likely fires in their vicinity. In the letter, we help visualize the inadequacy of 1,000 gallons per minute by saying that a fire in the church next door that starts in the kitchen and spreads to the adjoining common room would fully tax the limit of a 1,000 gallon per minute flow. If the fire cannot be stopped there, with only 20% of the structure involved, then the entire building will be lost because of inadequate water supply, long before the fire has even touched the historic sanctuary and nave. That's clearly not a situation we can readily accept. Kelly Funeral Home, the Morgan House, and Town Hall here itself would all be in similar peril. Loss of any of these buildings would forever alter the historic nature of downtown. Back in 1975, a church in Arlington, Massachusetts, nearly identical to our Congregational church, had a steeple fire. The city's main firehouse was closer to the church than ours, staffed 24/7. An alarm was turned in just moments after smoke first appeared, yet the building could not be saved. I have a photograph of it in its final moments. Let's see, I'm going to put it over here. Our audio-visual department is a little bit lacking, but maybe you can get a picture of that. The culprit was inadequate water supply, right in the very center of Arlington. Firefighters from 16 surrounding towns watched helplessly as the church burned to the ground. Now in Lee, history gets made every day in small incremental chunks that hardly get noticed, but cumulatively a coherent story gets told. One part of the story is that Lee has been shaped by fires and floods. The once vibrant commercial and industrial community of East Lee disappeared entirely under the burden of 3 floods. Many of our paper mills burned to the ground, some more than once. While preparing the exhibit, Lee Goes to Work, that has just opened in the library, Phil Smith, who put the exhibit together, noted that development of Lee's business community hit a noticeable speed bump the day the Greenock Hotel burned. It's a bit of a marvel then that most of the buildings on Lower Main Street today look very much like they did in the 1890s, before our first automobile. We'd like to keep it that way. A primary source of history in any town is its official documents, kept by the town clerk and the town's departments. By quoting the OSRP, the letter we wrote relies on the only document on the town's website that presents the fire flow figures with any clarity. Although not footnoted, the OSRP bases its statements on a 2014 engineering study to determine water requirements for the revitalized Eagle Mill. That report is not online on the town's website, but it should be, given its central role in recommending design of the new water mains. The only other official source of enlightenment regarding the water mains is the minutes of the January 7th, 2020 Select Board. At this Select Board meeting, there was a lengthy discussion of Phase 2, since that will be done mostly using town funds. As described in the minutes, the project will cause only minor disruption, closing one lane at a time as it moves along. Downtown fire prevention is mentioned as a benefit, with reminders of the great Dresser Hall fire. Both phases at that time were ready to go out for bid, with Chris Ketchen intending to hold a special town meeting once the funding magnitude for Phase 2 is known. Dick Lindsay writes an upbeat report in the Berkshire Eagle that asserts combined the two new water mains will improve fire protection for the downtown. He goes on to write at least 6 more water main articles over the next 18 months. And these then become our primary window on the projects, because there is no further Select Board agenda item or minutes touching on the topic since that January 7th date. The very next article from Dick Lindsay appears just a month later and reverses much of the Phase 2 plan. Turns out the request for bid was not sufficiently detailed for a confident response. Phase 2 will have to wait, possibly till 2021. At about this time, turbulence sets in. Defending the Rest of River Agreement consumes the Select Board's attention, followed immediately by the task of dealing with the effects of the pandemic. Phase 1 is awarded and work begins on that, but all unstarted capital projects are suspended. A special town meeting is out of the question. Even the regular town meeting is in doubt, postponed at first to late June and ultimately to October. As we start to emerge from the pandemic this spring, work on Phase 1 reawakens from its winter slumber and nears its conclusion. On April 12th, Dick Lindsay writes an article saying the new 12-inch line should be operational by Independence Day. But Phase 2 is on the back burner indefinitely. Then on June 7th of this year, Dick Lindsay writes an article about the Main Street paving project. Quoting Chris Ketchen, "That street can't wait any longer," and Main Street's makeover means the municipal water pipeline replacement is on the back burner for possibly another 10 years. At first glance, it looks like fire safety has been sacrificed for a smooth ride. But it turns out that there's an important subtext here. This story is both about fire flow and information flow. The information flow to the public is equally inadequate. Quite simply, the town is not using the common everyday tools that would facilitate genuinely good communication with its constituents. For a moment, let me go back to the question of fire protection for the historic district. The fire hydrant at Town Hall is apparently the one that's being talked about as having 1,000 gallon per minute flow. But it's not the only one available. There's another one in front of Car Hardware and a third one at the intersection of Park and High. That same 2014 engineering study that I said should be on our town's website tells us that the hydrant at Park and High can likewise deliver 1,060 gallons per minute. Together with the Town Hall hydrant, the numbers would not be strictly additive because today they both feed from the same 6-inch line from the reservoir up on Center Street. But it would not be surprising if combined they could supply 1,700 gallons per minute. In a discussion with Fire Chief Brown after the letter was written, he says he's quite sure the hydrant at Car Hardware is fed not from the reservoir, as it really visually looks like it must be, that it must be part at the very end of the Main Street line, not from that reservoir, but from a tank off Fairview Street. If so, we have an independent source, probably at another 1,000 gallons per minute or more. This would bring us to 2,700 gallons per minute, pretty close to the 3,500 we're looking for. Once the switchover connecting to the 12-inch line, connecting to the 12-inch line is made, that number should only get better. How much better? We don't actually know until we measure it. The problem is that none of what I've just described is documented. It lives instead in the realm of speculation and conjecture. A thoughtful and complete document will go a long way to reassure those of us who worry about preserving Lee's historic monuments. It's something the townspeople deserve. I'm confident that Fire Chief Brown can produce such a document, for surely he spends a lot of time thinking about firefighting strategy. That will save us from digging up the magnificent pavement on Main Street. And if only we can encourage town staff at every level to think about how to better communicate, we'll all participate in contributing a little piece of local history. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I know we have talked to Chief Brown. I know I've talked to him myself, and he did mention that Main Street, what we're referring to, is not the only source of fire protection at this end. So let's see if we can get that information and get it out somehow on the website.
Can we get a letter from him and make sure it's on the website? Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, and I appreciate I think that we could use some work on communication as a fundamental, issue from us all. And how do we get that? So I think that's a larger conversation that I think we should have.
Right.
How do we use technology to do those sorts of things? Because it is easy, and so I'd like to improve on the town's
I've looked at dozens of town websites as well as dozens of historical society websites. Ours is certainly not the worst. And Chris Britton is to be commended for the work he's done on it because it's improving every day. But there's still quite a distance to go with that and other modes that could be used and are being used by your other towns that are your colleagues. Okay, and I'd be glad to come back at some point and summarize some of that.
Always happy to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to add that in this communication with the Chief Brown, that there is some assurance that the historic district is adequately protected in fire protection. That is very important. We need to know that the church is safe, this building is safe, Wellington's is safe. We need to know that for a fact.
Okay. Got it. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
Only that I've spoken to some people in the water department who also assured me the same thing, about the same concern that we're talking about tonight. And they're saying that the work needs to be done, but currently we do have the capacity to fight a fire should such an unfortunate event occur. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, next order of business is,
Gas permits.
we have Berkshire gas permits. Getting there. Okay. The first one is an application for permit to install new gas service at 335 West Park Street.
Got signatures from,
We have signatures from the DPW and the police department. DPW needs to bore under the road.
Patty, when I talked to Zippy, he said he talked to Amy Foley at the Berkshire Gas.
Yeah.
And they assure him that they can bore under, but if they get there and they can't, I guess it's not like a major thing, they're just gonna not do it.
Oh, okay,
That's what Zippy told me.
that sounds good.
okay.
We're all set with that?
I'll make a motion to approve the installation of a new gas service at 115, no wait.
335.
335 West Park Street.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then the second one is to replace gas service at 85 Stockbridge Road, house and cottage. Same thing, it's been approved by the DPW, and the same way with DPW needs to bore under road. Anything about this one, Cindy?
Well, it's for both.
Oh, it's for both of them, okay. Same deal. Okay.
I'd move to approve the permit for a replacement gas service at 85 Stockbridge Road.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay. Now, we have an appointment to the Board of Assessors. Is anybody from the assessors here tonight? No. So, Mr. Ketchum.
So this is just to codify the enabling legislation, or not to codify, but to act on the enabling vote at the town meeting late last month to appoint Sarah Navin to the vacancy on the Board of Assessors, now that we are legally able to do so.
Okay.
She,
Does anybody have questions about that? No?
No, I don't. I think there was quite a bit of discussion at town meeting about this, so.
Okay. So is this your appointment, Chris?
Actually, it's the board's
Board's
appointment.
That's what I thought.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I could speak as to my professional interaction with her, but it's really up to you.
Okay.
Yeah. And to say that this was the request of the Board of Assessors is not occurring in a vacuum.
Right.
So.
Okay, so somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Sarah Navin to the Board of Assessors.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Sarah. Okay, this next item, donations for public installations, came about because over the last 6 months or so, we've had 2 or 3 requests for benches, naming streets,
Park.
parks,
Right.
different things, and different things like that. And we don't have a policy in town that covers this. And some towns that don't have policies also kind of found themselves in a kind of a spot where, you know, people love these things, and it's wonderful, and it's usually in honor of someone in their family, but at some point it goes beyond what should be in town. So what I did is I asked Cindy to actually call the town of Lenox, because they had a similar issue going on, and they have guidelines. So what I'd like to ask is that we all look at these guidelines, and if they might be too much for Lee, they might not be enough, they might not be pertinent to Lee, and maybe even come up with our own.
No, I'm definitely open to it. I think it's good to have a framework, an avenue to go forward on if you wanted to do something like this for somebody in memorial. You know, historically, I know things just kind of.
Sometimes things just happen.
Right.
And, you know, they take you off guard, and you don't really, you know, have any control over what's going on. So, I mean, like I said, this might be too much for us.
Right,
It might not be enough. It
but
may
some
be
sort of
different.
process, I think, is important.
Right, that we could adopt as a Board of Selectmen. And then when someone comes and says, oh, can I do X, Y, and Z? You say, well, here's the policy, and let's see how it fits in with the town.
Are you suggesting we take these and review them and then come back?
Yes.
Okay.
Make some alterations.
Either
some
next
suggestions.
meeting
I
or the
think
meeting
that-
after.
Okay.
No big hurry on it, but.
Okay.
And then, you know, we can sit down and put our own thing together.
All right.
I
Thank
looked
you.
at other towns too, and I didn't see anything on their internet. Because I didn't anything.
So it's a start.
Yeah, thank you.
There's no sense in reinventing the wheel, you know, but we just might have to pare it down a little bit.
Any-
Is there any means of the public seeing these for input?
I'm sorry, but
Is there any way that the public can see these for input?
Yeah.
Or comment?
I would say so. I would say let us sit down and see what we can come up with.
Okay.
And then once we decide, we'll put it out there and see what kind of comments someone from the town has.
Okay.
You know, someone from the public has.
Right now, all you have is.
Right.
Yeah.
I do have a comment. I just thought I'd add, I think it's a great idea because I know about 8 or 10 years ago in Lenox, so these were written after that event, they'd probably be stronger, but there was a donation, a memorial that completely destroyed part of Kennedy Park in honor of a family member, and there was a big, you know, fissures between, you know, the two sides, and so, you know, it was over the top, you know, and it really kind of took away from the beauty of Kennedy Park. So I wouldn't want to see something like that happen here, so I'm grateful that you're considering this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Monica. Yeah, we'll put something together and see what we come up with, and we'll let people see it. We're all the way up to Lee Youth Commission. Update. Kathy?
I'm always appreciative that you leave the best for last. Well, the Lee Youth Commission, first of all, we'd like to thank the town of Lee for appropriating monies for playground equipment and 2 studies for our community center. That's very important, so that was voted in at the last town meeting. Thank you. Then playground surfacing arrived today at the athletic field. We need volunteers this Saturday, July 10th at 8 a.m. at the Lee Athletic Field to spread this surfacing. We do have it protected right now from the wind and the rain, that type of thing, so we're all set. And then the Lee Youth Commission would like to ask anyone interested in finalizing a plan for a community center to attend our meeting this Monday, July 12th at 7 p.m. And that meeting will occur right here. So it's very important.
Will that be on Zoom, did you say?
No, it's going to be...
Going to be here?
In the courtroom?
Yes, in the courtroom. Okay, and that's a very important meeting. We already have a conceptual plan, but now if we're going to go and do the marketing analysis and the financial feasibility, we have to have something more concrete to present for those studies. So it'd be very helpful if people would come and look at it and give us some ideas so that we can move forward.
When is that meeting going to take place, please?
It's going to take place here,
Yeah.
Monday, July 12th, right, at 7 o'clock.
Kathy, did you book the courtroom for that?
You know what, I probably didn't, so Cindy, can you make it happen? Thank you. I'm so used to the Zoom meetings, that I forgot that we have to do that. But yes, so, okay, thank you. Well, make it work, okay? Thank you. Pretty please? Thank you.
Is that it, Kathy? Okay, I'd like to just piggyback on something that I've been told is happening, and I would just like to get it out to the public. I know we don't have a dog park in Lee yet. You know, we're always trying. But apparently, there are people in town who use the athletic field as their dog park, and they don't clean up after their dogs. And there's no reason for it. And so I'd just like to ask people, please, if you're gonna go down there with their dogs and let them run, clean up after them so Kathy and her husband don't have to come down every day and clean it up. That's not fair, it's not right. And, you know, be responsible people. So,
People should know, it is a state law that dogs have to be on a leash. They can't be running around in the park without a leash.
okay,
We investigated that a few years ago and checked with the police department too.
okay, good. Other than that, we have no pending business. The town administrator, turn over to you.
Just to report that the revenue and expense reports for the period ending June 30th are available for your inspection.
Okay. So we're up to public comments. Janet?
Chris, 1 second, those were preliminary. Lynn said to make sure they're preliminary.
Yes, we haven't thank you, Cindy. Whereas we haven't closed the books officially on the previous fiscal year, there's audit adjustments that always take place. So it's a preliminary closing. Thank you, Cindy.
Okay.
Yeah. Good point.
Hello.
So, hello. I'd like to just thank you for saying that about the playgrounds and the dogs, and it makes me remember Bev Tremblay fondly, because that was one of the things that she would get up at town meeting every year and talk about. And between remembering Bev and Dayton DeLorme in the last couple days, it's kind of what's bringing me here is reflecting on our annual town meeting. And of course, I watched it again on CTSB TV, and I find myself really regretful that I didn't offer more of my thoughts at the meeting. So I feel like I'd just like to bring forth a few other thoughts that I had that I didn't get up. I think I'd like to make the excuse that I was freezing cold, but I also have other reasons that I just didn't get up and I should have. Not only about town management in general, but specifically about the Housatonic River cleanup. In talking to several people in town, I learned that others were feeling the same as me that night and during other recent meetings. I'm afraid the tone of public meetings from some participants has become rude and uncivil to the point of intimidation. It's not my nature to argue, and I'm not a practiced orator who can block out people shouting from the audience, and I think it kept me from speaking. It's kept me from speaking a few times. last meeting here, I was made to feel very uncomfortable. And I feel like I'm taking a risk even coming to the microphone tonight. Some people braver than me have tried to make fair points about the rest of the river agreement only to be berated and disrespected. Some have had to purchase security devices for their homes, prepared to leave public events, and look over their shoulder for fear of repercussions from people who oppose the agreement as it stands. Threats on social media range from sniper scopes to tarring and feathering town leaders. And my question is, what have we come to? In my opinion, this divisiveness is not helping anyone's cause. I'd like to remind all who have formed strong opinions that it's possible to disagree without being disagreeable. Please try to listen to possible ideas coming from all sides and obtain as much information from as many resources as possible. Which brings me to a couple of questions. The last meeting, you guys and I did get up and ask like what the possibilities were for asking for a third opinion, or has our town council been able to talk to anyone about the rescinding of the agreement and what the repercussions would be? So one of my questions to you is, I recognize that you can't say what the repercussions of rescinding the agreement would be because nobody really knows. We don't have a crystal ball. However, in my mind, from what I've read and researched, rescinding an agreement could be dangerous to our town of losing a seat at the table and also facing a lawsuit. Is that something that I can assume might happen if we were to rescind Lee's portion of the agreement?
Well,
Go
I
ahead,
guess
Bob.
that when we discussed this at, I guess it was our last meeting. Was it our last meeting that I made the
Yep.
motion? Yeah. And my point was that that conversation should take place, and that conversation could take place with acting on Articles 10 and 16 from the October meeting. In other words, to rescind the agreement, when you build a house, you don't put the roof on first and then put in the foundation. You have to start somewhere. So the very place we should start would be to find out about the costs involved, what the chances are of actually being able to rescind the agreement, what the effects of rescinding the agreement might be, and that money is sitting there, in my mind, and I think in the minds of a lot of people, to be used just for that.
So has our town council, Jeremiah Pollard, advised, or am I allowed to ask that, or are you allowed to disclose that, of what would happen or might happen if we were to do that?
What might happen if what?
If we were to rescind our part of the agreement?
I don't know that Jeremiah could answer that.
I've spoken to Jeremiah about this in some way, not super in depth. He doesn't really, he's not an environmental lawyer specifically, and that's why the rest of River Committee went to somebody like Matt Powell.
Right.
For that reason.
Because he's an environmental lawyer. And that was his advisement is to, okay.
Right,
All
and I think that, from my conversation with Jeremiah, it was clear that you don't, I understand what you're saying, Bob, about, having that conversation or starting that, but it's not the decision to rescind the deal isn't a beginning, it's sort of a final decision. We're saying we're out of the deal, done. We don't get to go back into the agreement after we rescind the deal. Let's say, and this is one thing that I thought that I didn't really bring up, and I didn't think about until after our last meeting. Who's to say, let's say that HRI is successful with their appeal and they stopped the dump, but we made a decision to rescind the deal. We still rescinded the deal. We're still out of the agreement. We still have no involvement, even if HRI is successful. So that's something that I think we need to consider, that timeline of saying like, hey, we're taking a leap there, because that's to the nature, and it wasn't just Jeremiah that I've spoken to. I talked to an ex-EPA lawyer. He doesn't work for the EPA anymore, and he said very similar things. You have ultimately no chance of winning. You're not going to have any involvement, and it is important for you to have oversight, have control to whatever level that you can, and you fight for those things, and you stay involved in the process as best you can. So that's where I got a lot of those. I tried to communicate that best I could at the last meeting. That's where I got a lot of those thoughts that I had. I don't think if I had anything else to add, but.
So also in the vein of obtaining as much information as possible, I'm wondering, Bob, last time we were here, Patty had asked you if you would be willing to talk to Brian Olson from the EPA. Have you gotten a chance to do that?
I have spoken with Brian Olson, and he asked to meet with me. And what I said to him was, are we going to meet, are we going to discuss anything new other than what's already been discussed? I mean, I've gone to the public hearings, I've read the briefs from HRI, I've gotten as much. I said, are you going to tell me anything new? Or are you going to explain to me all the reasons why the rest of the river agreement should be maintained? Mm-hmm. And are you interested in hearing more from HRI or whatever? And would it be possible for me to have, say, somebody like Tim Gray? Because I'm not a scientist, I'm not an EA.
Right.
And he was open to that. He said that he had worked with Tim and had respect for Tim, and we agreed to get back with each other. Within 24 hours, he got back to me and said because there was litigation going on at this point, that he couldn't really speak with Tim. And so I said, well, unless you're going to tell me something new, perhaps, discuss the possibility of there not being a dump and leak, perhaps discuss the possibility of other alternatives, and I don't think we really need to meet. And he said, well, maybe in the fall we could get together if the appeal with the EPA did not go as well as HRI hoped it would. And I said I was absolutely open to having the conversation, but I really thought it would be a waste of time, and I couldn't help. I really couldn't. I don't have the expertise other than to listen to him, and I don't think the town of Lee needs another sales pitch or a clarification of what we already know the EPA has to say.
Okay. So.
But I'm sorry, let me, Sean, in response to what you said, I don't think anybody in the town of Lee would expect us to, in rescinding this agreement, would expect us to say, okay, we're going to write a letter and get out of, tell the rest of the river we're going to be done and we're getting out, and then let's go find out and see what that means. Nobody wants that. But what I want, and what the people I talk to want is we've got $50,000 there that the town reps have said, use it to get us out of the rest of the river, go find out what the legal ramifications of getting out of the rest of the river agreement. And so my take on that is we hire outside counsel with credentials and a background in this sort of thing to get as much information as possible and then come back to the voters, because maybe the voters will say, well, this is a losing battle. But maybe they will say, we don't care. We want to go on with this. We want to fight this thing, because I'm one person, and I can't make that decision for the town of Lee. Mm-hmm. I'm a facilitator. I'm here to facilitate for the voters of Lee, and I know what they want. I think we all know what they want. And so that was the point of asking to move forward on Articles 10 and 16.
So was that the motion, how it was put forward, or when you made that big motion with all the questions combined? I was confused about that.
Well, and I think respectfully, Bob, I don't think we're very far apart here. The problem is, I think that the motion that was made at town meeting that you asked to, and what you're getting to, was not to hire legal counsel to advise us on the repercussions. It was hire legal counsel to get us out of the agreement.
Right.
That's how
So
I understood
there
it,
is,
but I
there
could
is
be
a
wrong.
nuanced difference there that's important.
Well, it's
to say.
nuance and it's to a certain degree semantics. And I think, but to do nothing is I think, is just a very bad mistake. I think it's a poor choice and I think it's bad governance. And if somebody has another suggestion as to how to get this information, how to move this thing forward, the thing is, the ultimate goal, at least if I'm hearing things right from my constituents and from the town reps, is they don't want to dump and leave. So ultimately, the goal would be to rescind that agreement. But as I say, when you're building a house, you start with a foundation. You find out what the costs are, what the odds are, what the legal ramifications are, and go back to the voters and say, here's where we stand. Where do we go from here?
I think I'm going to repeat myself. I don't feel like that was the motion. I didn't feel like that was the motion that was made. But that's up to you guys to talk about and decide, because I think it's a good idea to ask for almost like, I think this is one of the things that I said, and I know I'm taking way too much time up here. Yeah. But one of the things that was said is you go and weigh things out and you talk to people that know more than you do, know more than all of us do, you know? And like the whole thing with Matt Powa, who was our advisor and lawyer, I would love for you to ask more questions with him if he's willing. And I know Tim Gray's HRI seems to have really good points, and I wonder what the answers would be from the EPA's perspective with Tim, and I know they've hashed things around. In any event, I want to finish what I have written here and then leave it to wherever you guys take this. I just wanted to say that your constituents are all the taxpayers in Lee, and according to the Berkshire Eagle, you know, Sean, you won against your opponent. Bob, you won 688 to 269. And to John Cody's point last meeting, there were, according to my calculations, there were 3,474 registered voters who did not vote. And that's disturbing to me. And I have a very unscientific opinion as to why that it's driven by multiple conversations and observations that most of our voters do not have strong opinions about town operations. They're raising their families, watching their grandchildren, working 2 jobs to pay bills, and trying to navigate their way through life, as they count on our 3 select board members and our town administrator to make informed decisions about the future of Lee. I feel like, obviously, when you ask the question, do you want to dump in Lee? The answer from pretty much everybody is going to be no. But if asked if you're getting a dump because the appeals have not worked in your favor, would you want a seat at the table to stay informed and have input on the process? The answer would be much different. No one has a crystal ball as to what's going to happen. I hope the HRI lawsuit carries more weight than the rest of the river appeal. No one wants a dump. Most of us want the current dump, which is the Housatonic River, to be cleaned up. And I appreciate that you're willing to put the time in, because basically, in my mind, this is volunteer time other than our town administrator and Cindy. But I feel like there's a lot of people counting on you guys to make the decisions. I'd call that 3,474 people who didn't vote that depend on your research and the information that you obtain to be able to make those decisions. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have public comments?
Monica Ryan, District 6 representative. Powell was the lawyer who represented all 5 towns originally in the agreement, was he?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't trust him. I would not spend any more money on him. I would recommend any other environmental attorney. I just feel like he brought us to where we are now and did us no favors, so that's my opinion on that.
Okay.
But I come here tonight, I didn't even know Janet was going to speak, so I was going to come here and just talk about specifically the articles that were voted on at the article, the motion at the last select board meeting a few weeks ago, to approve and, implement Articles 10 and 16 from the annual town meeting of the prior year, which is to, rescind the agreement. Now, I agree with Bob. We're not saying rescind, stop, do nothing. I feel like that was what was being inferred earlier tonight, that by rescinding, we just stop and do nothing. We need to do something. We need to clean the Housatonic. That's obviously has to take place, although there's a small group of people who think leave it there, but the majority want it out of there. It's a matter of how can we get it out of there safely and keep our our community safe. And I feel that when we voted on it at the annual town meeting, we really voted to rescind it. So, I know we talked about, and even I talked about, let's get the the expertise of a lawyer, step one, but that is, we did vote to rescind it. We did. And what I'm here tonight to ask you, Patty, and you, Sean, is to give me an answer as to why you would choose not to implement any article that has been voted on at the annual town meeting. I fear that you may pick another article willy-nilly that you don't want to, implement. And we all voted on it, so doesn't that vote carry, and shouldn't you be doing those articles? You're the only ones responsible for it. The town administrator helps as well, but as far as enforcing what we, the town representatives, ask you to do every year, whether it's pay the school budget and, buy the new police car, whatever it is, you do it. But why did you choose these two and say, I'm not going to do it? I need your reasons. I need to hear it. I need to see it in writing. I feel like it's just I think it's almost illegal to me, in my mind. It's, if not at the very least, unethical. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, Patty, I go to you first. You're the chair, and I respectfully ask you for specifically why you feel you cannot do certain articles of our annual town meeting. That's the crux of my question.
And I guess the basic way of saying that, Monica, is that not everything that goes on in a town meeting by the town reps is under the town reps' purview. You may think it is, and some town reps may think it, but there are some things that come up. Now, that wasn't an article we put on. That was a petition article. I'm talking about 16 now, I guess. That was a petition article that
Well,
went on.
let's talk about the first one.
All right, the 50,000?
Yep.
Okay,
That was on the,
right.
right.
Which also didn't.
But amended.
The scope meant
That's
something
what I'm-
very different when the
That's what
warrant
I'm
was
saying. The
published.
scope of the article did not allow for what Bob wants us to do. I'm sorry to use.
How did it not allow us to do what?
I think you had the correct, I don't have it in front of me, Monica, but it did not allow for us to go out and find out the ramifications of what would happen if we got out of the settlement, if we rescinded the settlement.
That I don't understand.
Well, because you vote things at a town meeting in an article, and they're very specific.
Yeah.
You can't go outside the lines and use it for something else.
Well, it says to rescind the agreement. Part of the rescinding the agreement would be to hire an attorney
Right.
to rescind the agreement.
It was specifically money for legal
Legal.
advice.
All right, you see it the way you want.
Well,
I see
the
it a
original
different way.
article was to spend $50,000, as we'd been spending many thousands
Yep.
of dollars previous years, to a legal
defense
team,
fund.
for the defense, for the legal defense, for the town of Lee, for the rest of the river, right. So we amended it to spend it on still legal funds, but not for that. And it was reviewed by the town attorney that night, and we took a break, and he reviewed it. So, how is it that we can take something, we're allowed to amend articles, we are allowed, and we have to vote on it, we voted on it, we amended it. So, and the attorney that night approved it. So, in my
I don't know
mind,
that he
it's all
approved
still
it, he
good.
wrote it.
He reviewed it as he does anytime we have an amendment.
I don't feel it
We've
was
not gone
proper.
back on anything else, so it's like, again, I come back to, you didn't really answer my question before, Patty, I apologize, but I didn't really understand what you were saying with your answer. Could you repeat?
Well, I'm just saying, even the amended version that was put into and the verbiage that was put into that motion does not allow us to do what now you want to change it to do. It's not just hiring, it's not just the hiring of a lawyer, but you're asking us to hire a lawyer to tell us the ramifications of rescinding. That's not what the article said.
Well, then just do what the article says, which is actually just to hire a
No, I
lawyer and
can't do
rescind it. You know, not to just look into it, but just to do it. I mean, but that is the mandate that we gave you.
Okay, but I'm not even sure it was a mandate that you could give us.
See, Patty, I just think that is, I think it's semantics, I really do.
Yeah.
Well,
No, it's you have to, I mean, gets to the crux of the issue, is that we are only allowed to do, that money, that was appropriated money. Okay, town meeting for appropriating money. We appropriated money to do a very specific thing. We can't do something else with that money. We're not allowed to do that legally. Like,
Then was Jeremiah completely wrong when he approved it?
he didn't approve it. I mean, he helped with the
He-
language of
yeah.
the amendment. He looked
Right.
it over on the spot, given no notice of the, and after the
always.
fact, like Patty's getting to, in essence, it was out of order, because the original amendment was for one thing, or the original warrant article was for one thing.
that was
and it
put
got-
in by the board.
It got amended to do something completely different. So, in essence, the amendment was out of order.
I don't think that it was. I disagree with you and both of you, and I would like to have a legal opinion written by Jeremiah Pollard on this very topic as to the reason why you would choose not to implement those two acts, and why you feel that they are not legal. In other words, I feel that they are legal and binding, and you should be implementing them as soon as possible. And if you're not, I need to have a legal reason why this is being done from Jeremiah or another attorney, but I feel like, amendments are done. Yes, sometimes they do go in the other direction. That's, democracy in action. Amendments are made on the floor, on the fly, and he's never going to have an advance notice for those kind of things. So, that's what his job is, and he does it to the best of his abilities, and I just feel that he reviewed it. We did take a break. He looked it over. If he felt that he had any, he has shown us other times when he's like, no, this is not going to work. You need to, this will never fly. Don't even go to vote. So he's given us that advice. So why didn't he do that here? He would have said, hey, this is not going to fly. You're going to complete 180 degrees.
Monica, I understand what you're saying. I'm not going to change my mind. I feel we can't do what you asked us to do, or what the town meeting voted to do. I don't feel it's a legal thing.
Will you
That's all there
please
is to
get Jeremiah to put it in
We'll pass
writing?
along the message and see what,
You'll pass along a message to Jeremiah. Will he put it in writing?
I would assume so. I don't
I'm
know.
a citizen asking for this because I'm a town representative that was one of the ones that voted yes for you to do these things. And I want an answer, and I think a lot of the other town reps who voted yes want a firm answer as to why you feel this is illegal, because I don't agree with you. I really don't.
Hi, for the record, I'm Gail Cericia, 161 West Park Street, and I'm also here for the same reason that Monica's here tonight, but I would like to ask a few questions of Sean.
Sure.
Sean, you said you were a soccer coach?
Yeah.
Okay. When you get a team together, okay, and people, and you decide who's going to be on the team, what if you have two contenders and you have to make a decision and they both want to be on your team, okay? And figure the team is the town, okay? And you have actually three people, but one you decide, no, they're not on my team. They're really for a different team, okay? And so you have two people on the same team saying that they're going to do the same kinds of they have the same philosophy, and they're going to come forward, and they're going to represent the people on your team. And then the people say, okay, well, well, Sean's been around for a long time, and he's got relatives, and he has a lot of friends, and he has a lot of influence, and he's young, and he has a lot of good things going. And then we look at the other candidate, and, she's really got great credentials. She's a vice president of college, which people didn't even know. And so the people vote. And both of those members landslide over the person that is going for the dump, let's say, okay, for whatever team they are, okay? And then most of the votes come in for a particular point of view. And then that person wins, one of the people win. That happens to be you. And then you get in office and you turn around and you say, well, I changed my mind. I looked at some things and I've decided I'm not going to be against the dump. And then the annual town meeting comes along and people vote, the representatives vote to put money forward to rescind the agreement, and you decide you're going to change, you're going to turn 180 degrees and go a different direction. Now, if you had somebody on your soccer team that did that, that decided, he learned all your plays, he came to your meetings, he went to your rallies, okay, he went to all your practices, just parallel to his soccer, your team. And that team member, at the most critical point of time, decides to kick a goal for the other team. What do you think your team would do? I want to know. It's an analogy. I really would like to know. What would you do with that team member?
And with all due respect, Gail, this isn't a soccer team.
It is. It's the same thing. The analogy is the same. We voted for you to help
Gail,
us.
this isn't the place for
I'm
this.
sorry, I have to finish.
I'm sorry, and I'm not going to take it. This is not the place for a discussion of Sean's candidacy. Say what you like about the rest of the river and your feelings and what you think we did wrong, but enough is enough.
I'm just pointing out that he switched teams, okay?
Okay.
So all I want also, what I want to say is you, right now, people, the townspeople, certain townspeople are trying to fight this dump. They're not saying they're against the whole rest of the river. They don't want the dump, and there are alternatives. And we really would like that $50,000 to go to an independent lawyer, not the one that represented all 6 towns, okay, or 5 towns. We would like that money to go towards looking into, even if you don't rescind it, we would like to see that money go towards
Well, we've already taken a
investigation.
vote on that, and it was not passed. This board took a vote on doing just that.
Right.
It didn't pass.
I have to admit, Patty, you said you would not change your mind a while ago, no matter what. So
I don't think I said no matter what. I just said I can't change my mind.
today you said you can't change your mind, but I can go back and watch a
Okay.
meeting, and you
Maybe I
said
did.
you would vote the same way. So
Oh,
you
I
don't
would.
care what the people say.
I do, but not,
Not
I'm
on,
not
not
gonna
on
go
this
against
particular issue, because it's not a big deal.
Okay.
To you, okay? It is to us, but it's not to you, okay?
fair. Gail, that's not fair.
It
That's
totally,
not-
it's fair,
it is
Pat.
not.
What, you sit up
All right,
there
all right,
as a select
never mind.
person.
You've said
and
your
you-
piece. You're done.
No, I am not done.
Dee Dee, do you have something to
I
say?
am not
Does
done.
No, you're done.
See,
You're done.
you're gonna be done.
Okay.
Can I respond really?
Well, I'm sorry, thank you.
Can I respond, Dee Dee, before you go?
I'm sorry, I
please?
have the floor. I'm very sorry for this and this disagreement. I have to say I back all of the people who want the $50,000 to be used in the way that we had envisioned. And I support that. I support all of us working together, and this is what I wanted to say about all of this. because I have something slightly different to talk about, and it is very, very important to the town, and that's the inability of the people of the town of Lee not only to have their say in other things, but to have their say in how our town beach is going to be used for them in the future. And we know, having seen our budget figures, that we have a sum of money that's extra from last year and the year before because of COVID. Now we have a financial source whereby we might be able to approach the owner and find some financial arrangement whereby we can use the road. This situation has gone on for now 11 years. People are so terribly disgruntled about their treatment by the access road owner, and I'm not going to get into that except to say that today, for my 11th year, I walked to the High Lawn Farm cornfield because I am not allowed to use that road. 11 years. Monica kayaks over from the boat ramp because she's also not allowed to use the road. So I went through corn that started off in the beginning of the day as waist high, and when the rains came, and after that it was up to my neck. So here I am swimming through corn thinking this is such an absurd situation, it cannot stand. So I would like to broach the idea of us getting together, maybe beach committee members working with Chris and the select board, at least one member of the select board, to come up with a figure whereby we may offer the access road owner a financial sum to straighten all of this out. So that's my piece, and I thank you all.
Okay. Thanks, Judy. Anybody else have anything?
I've taught history for 33 years, and 3 of those years were specifically for civics. According to some people, way back when we had the big meeting about the dump in the Z, we couldn't hear the presentation because people in the audience were shouting and whatnot. And unfortunately, our moderator never said point of order. And every time that there's a discussion of the dump, whether it's at the Z or here, we need to, I don't know if we go by the Roberts Rules of Order. We do in the Youth Commission, we go by the Roberts Rules. And it is the chairperson's responsibility to call point of order. And you did that after a long time of some intimidation toward Sean. And for people in the audience, even in the town meeting, you know, people in the audience were saying hold. I actually had to turn to people and say, you can't do that. It's the representatives that have to say hold. So it's like we're still bashing people because of different opinions or changing. We're not looking at, people have done research, and maybe through that research and walking through and having discussions, that maybe that's why we have the right to agree to disagree. But as Janet said, we need to do it respectfully. And I go to all of your meetings, as you well know, and you allow me to speak, and I'm always grateful. But my heart is broken when we're not really following rules. I mean, I'm like at the point of saying, did we give up our democracy? Everybody's talking about democracy, but we're not very democratic. It's more like anarchy, that one group is trying to take over another. And I don't mean to be here, but I'm heartbroken. I'm heartbroken, and I hope it just stops. You can say what you want, that you don't want something, but I always taught my students, don't name names. You know, if you're talking about something in history, in the history book, yeah, then you say the name. But when you're talking about people you just don't do that. It's not polite. I mean, we gotta show some kind of manners in our town. So I just respect everybody. I respect your thoughts and how you feel about things, but I also feel that if we're really gonna do things democratically, we need to call point of order when it is indeed out of order. And that means we can't be naming names or pointing out things that are just not acceptable, You know, so I love this town. You know I love this town, and I fight for this town, and I'll do anything in my power to just keep it moving forward. But I just hope that we can work together, and we need to stop kind of like calling names and threatening people. Two people were threatened tonight. That isn't fair. That's not democracy. That's
I
not
disagree with that
Thank you.
statement. You did not threaten me.
You're out of order.
You're right, I know.
Yes, Monica, one last time. Then we're moving on.
I just wanted to speak to the annual town meeting and the fact that residents are supposedly not allowed to hold an item. I disagree with that because when we reviewed at the beginning of the annual town meeting, Dee Dee showed the town handbook. We follow Robert's Rules of Order and coupled with our town meeting handbook, and Dee Dee reminded us that all residents are allowed to speak, and she was disputing the fact that reps spoke first, that really everyone's allowed to speak. But if everyone is indeed allowed to speak, it would therefore be true that a resident could hold an item, and it would not have to be a representative holding an item. Do
Well,
you see
to
what-
date, it's never been done in over 50 years.
Right, but I wanted to clarify that legal point because at a future town meeting, and, you know, until we do become open town meeting, a resident can hold an item.
And have you ever read the whole town representative bylaw?
Oh, yes, several
I think
times.
that's where you'll find that, yes, residents can speak.
Yes.
But they can't put motions or anything.
No, they can, well, when you're going through the budget, you're going through, you know, police, fire, all that stuff, and we say hold.
Yeah, the reps do
So
that.
let's say they just read a regular article, the symbol article that says we're gonna buy a new fire truck and nothing else. Well, if a resident wants to speak on it, they don't have to hold it, they just get up and speak. Holding is just an abbreviation to say I want to speak.
All right, that's your understanding of it? Okay.
Okay.
That's fine.
Thank you.
I don't care. Is there anything else?
I'd just like to say one last thing, Patty, if I may.
Yeah.
You know, the issue here is about the rescinding of the deal. And yes, I voted to rescind the deal because this is what, again, I don't want the dump. Nobody wants the dump, okay? Regardless about how I feel about the dump, it's about what's possible here. The article stated, rescind the deal and renegotiate terms with GE to not include a dump in the town of Lee, of Berkshire County. I don't know the exact wordage. That's not possible at this point, and I'm sorry. That's how I feel. That's what I know right now. And, you know, I just feel like, and Bob, you said this at the last meeting. You said, Patty, you can change your mind. If you go and take the other side, Patty. Now I'm saying, look, I changed my mind. I can't vote to rescind the deal because I know it's not possible. I know that what you want to do to stop the dump by doing that is not possible. So yeah, change my mind. So I can't change my mind to go the other way, but Patty can change her mind to go that way. That's just so, the hypocrisy is astounding. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna
She
say.
never had the authorization to do what she did in the first place.
Okay. All right, that's it for tonight, unless somebody has something new to report. Our next regular meeting is July 20th at 7 o'clock here.